Welcome back to Panhandle Legends, where we take a closer look at the people who helped write the history of the High Plains. I'm Kaden, and today I'm here with Beth Duke, a community organizer and local historian, to talk about the lasting legacy of Dora Oliver-Eakle. I just learned yesterday that it was Eckle and not Eakle, so I'm going to try my best to pronounce it correctly.
That's right.
But we'll see. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you, Beth?
Oh, I'm great. You know, as executive director of Center City, one of our main goals is historic preservation, and the attention for some of our pioneers through the Panhandle Legends has been amazing, showing these stories and bringing them to light. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you again for coming. I really do think that you were one of the first people on my mind when I was told about this project originally from King. I was like, I'm sure that Beth will likely be involved at some point. There are a few local historians in our area that I think of every time I want to learn about Amarillo history, as in like King, Wes, and then you are usually first or second on that list.
Thank you.
If you guys have been following along with our station generally for a while, you may know this already. Beth is a friend of the station and generally a wonderful leader in our community. She is a longtime former journalist. She's a member of the Panhandle Press Association Hall of Fame. She was named Woman of the Year a few years ago. She was one of our Remarkable Women nominees. She's also written a textbook about women in management, so she is pretty much the perfect person in our community to talk about MD Oliver-Eakle, who is one of the iconic literal architects of Amarillo's city skyline, as well as a trailblazer woman of her own in Amarillo's history. So, in your own words, with all that kind of context given,
Yes.
how would you describe who MD Oliver-Eakle is and what her story is?
You know, Dora Oliver-Eakle, and that's a long name, but it's
crazy
so
long.
exciting because she came to Amarillo with her husband, who was a furniture dealer and an entrepreneur. When he died, she stayed in Amarillo, and she adopted the city, and didn't just adopt it as a place to live, but she was a visionary as a developer. And many people see the name now, and they don't really recognize it, but she had such a guiding force in developing our history.
She is in so much.
She is. If you dig back a few generations, you're going to find her name and her family's name on many things.
And you will even if you turn a corner today. So, Oliver-Eakle came to the Amarillo area in the 1890s.
That's right.
What was Amarillo like at the time Oliver-Eakle brought her carriage and horses into town? What would she have met?
Well, the city of Amarillo was only chartered in 1887.
Very recent.
If you think about it, she came when our city was 3 years old.
That's wild.
And at that time, it was just a beginning. It was a railroad stop, and the railroad is one big reason Amarillo became the trading hub for the whole Panhandle. One of our great state historians, Mike Cox, says that Amarillo is the largest city in Texas that owes its existence to the railroad.
Really?
And that is because we didn't have lakes, we didn't have rivers, we didn't have other forms of transportation, but we got the railroad. And because of that, Dora Oliver-Eakle was a visionary, and she started platting or developing all the land between the railroad tracks and what is now Washington Avenue. It is huge. And when you drive around the neighborhood and see Plemons-Eakle neighborhood, that's Dora Oliver-Eakle, the neighborhood that she organized and planned. Even some of the land that Amarillo College Washington campus sits on is part of that development. And her development is one of only 2 National Register historic districts in our city. When you see the Plemons-Eakle toppers on the city streets, that's her handwork. And I like to say Amarillo only has 2 National Register historic districts. One is the Plemons-Eakle district. The other one's very, very quiet. You don't hear much about it. It's our beautiful Llano Cemetery.
Oh, yeah, where she's buried.
That's
actually.
right.
And
That's right.
many other historical figures. That's so cool. I didn't
And
know those were
people
the
go
only 2.
by the small park in the Plemons-Eakle neighborhood, and if you go through that little neighborhood park, you will see a historic marker to Dora Oliver-Eakle.
That's amazing. I think if I remember correctly, I have a bunch of notes here.
Yes.
Beth is reciting all this off the dome because she's the expert. But if I remember correctly, the historical marker can be found in Oliver-Eakle Park.
That's right.
Which is one of two parks that she gave land to. So she gave land to the city for Amarillo College and Memorial Park.
Yes.
Then Oliver-Eakle Park, her Oliver-Eakle. The Plemons-Eakle neighborhood includes the Plemons subdivision.
That's right.
The Oliver-Eakle subdivision, and then the addition as well, if I remember. She also contributed to the city the funding for Amarillo's first library. That was a project that was one of her babies. The Amarillo Opera House, which I don't think is still standing. But
no, but you can actually visit the site. And
really?
You may have visited the site and not known it. When the owners were building the beautiful new building that houses Six Car Pub and Crush, they, in the excavation, because they wanted the rooftop serving, they had to dig down to enforce the foundation so it could support the second story. Building down, they found some of the wooden burnt timbers from the Amarillo Opera House.
So that's where it was. I was trying
And when
to
you
look
go
into
into
it.
Six Car Pub, there is a photograph of the old Amarillo Opera House. I think it's, last time I was there, it was kind of back by the elevator. But as in those days, when something burnt, they just poured more dirt over it and built. And that's why in archaeology, in these ancient towns, there's so many layers. But in Amarillo, that's where the opera house was. And so now you, if you see old pictures of it, it's just a beautiful opera house
beautiful. I was
and a
looking at
treasure
old
that
postcards
was
of
truly lost, as many buildings of that era were lost to fire.
That's so cool, though. I'm so happy that you knew exactly where it was. I was trying to look into it yesterday, and I just couldn't get a good
It's a good excuse to go to Six Car Pub.
That's a great excuse to go to Six Car. So the Amarillo Opera House was one of her projects, as well as the Tri-State Fair, which just celebrated its 103rd year, 102nd year, as one of the major attractions of Amarillo and on Route 66. So that was in part funded by her, as well as very notably, kind of the most literally visible part of her legacy in Amarillo is the now known as the Barfield Building, which recently got its own historical designation. It was at first known as the Oliver-Eakle Building.
That's
and it was
right.
completed in 1927. It is Amarillo's first skyscraper.
That's right. And can you imagine, that was the building boom in Amarillo. Some of our greatest old buildings, First Baptist Church, Santa Fe Building, the Barfield, they were built through 1927, 28. And thank goodness they were built then, because then we faced the Great Depression. And during the Great Depression, Dora Oliver-Eakle was the richest woman in Amarillo, and she loaned money to Amarillo so our city wouldn't go bankrupt.
That's amazing.
Now, even back then, some people did not want to do business with a woman. So Dora Oliver-Eakle often went by her initials, MD Oliver-Eakle.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So even a few of the banks that she was working with, lending money through, didn't realize that it was her, right?
That's right.
So as a woman like financier, a woman like in real estate and business, what was the vibe like in the early 1900s, late 1890s for Oliver-Eakle? What would she have faced, even though she had so much capital backing her up in her pursuits?
You know, I think it would have been tough, because if you think about the laws, even in Texas, women didn't have the right to own property in their own name until the 50s. Women were not allowed to have credit cards in their own name until the 70s. And if you think about state laws, women weren't allowed to serve on juries in Texas till 1954. And you think about the obstacles she may have faced. However, a shrewd businesswoman and a visionary, I think she had the respect of people, and that was probably enough, plus the cash, to make people take her seriously.
So even though she had all of those obstacles in her way, she still wound up one of the most, notable landowners in Amarillo.
That's right.
That's crazy.
She saw the vision of what it could be. And I love her Oliver-Eakle building, the Barfield now. She built it as an office building, and it was in use as an office building up through the 60s. And she was a total prohibitionist, teetotaler, But she was smart enough to put a speakeasy in the basement for the lawyers
She
and
did.
attorneys. Yep.
That's kind of hilarious.
It's really ironical. And when the Barfield was redone to a hotel, they kept the original speakeasy. Her portrait is in the speakeasy, and they even kept the secret staircase that goes down to the
is so
speakeasy.
fun.
Now, today, most of us take the elevator, but they retained that wonderful staircase. And I think it's a tribute to her that she was far enough thinking of a way to really make her building important and make her building stand out from others. And what a great historic moment. The chairman of the Texas Historical Commission was in town in July, and he and I personally dedicated the marker that is now on the Barfield.
Yet another building to stop by to see more of Oliver-Eakle's legacy.
It is.
I remember that happening. That was so cool that they finally got.
And I grew up in Amarillo. I have a story about almost every building. And my father worked for the helium activity when they rented offices in the Barfield building. And this is way before Take Your Daughters to Work. But one Saturday morning, he took all three of us down to his office, opened the window, and we got to watch the Tri-State Fair Parade from outside the Barfield.
That's
and so
wonderful.
it's a childhood memory that stays with you. It
Yeah.
probably was not allowed under federal office regulations,
I mean,
but how great that he took his
what a
kids
wonderful
down
view,
just to
though.
see the parade, and you never forget things like that.
That is so fantastic. What a wonderful memory.
Then that building sat empty for 40 years. It was going to be condominiums, and then the recession of 2008 happened. It was going to be something else, and we kept hitting roadblocks and roadblocks. There was even a move at one time to tear it down. Fortunately, it was too big to tear down. So when it finally was opened as a hotel, we all celebrated. And it is now, it received honorable mention from Texas Monthly as one of the top 10 places to stay in Texas.
That's really
That's
awesome.
competing with all the big
We
cities.
have a lot of good
All things,
hotels.
and this got honorable mention. And our Barfield is such a treasure. You know, one of our goals in downtown was to make it a place to stay. Well, we didn't have any hotels. The Courtyard proved a hotel downtown would work. Then we got the Embassy as a convention hotel. But the Barfield stands apart as the luxury item, and its occupancy is great because people love luxury and they love a staycation. The conventions that come, some of them want that option. And it is just a jewel in our downtown. It's at the crossroads of our main street, Polk Street, and historic Route 66. So you can imagine next year for the 100th birthday of Route 66,
so
it's
excited.
going to be a focal point of our downtown party.
It's going to be so wonderful. What a great opportunity to really celebrate our city and all the different layers of legacy we have going on. I love
Exactly.
that Oliver-Eakle spent so many years putting so much effort and organizing prowess and savvy and networking into helping build Amarillo. And now, like, every new generation kind of takes that and builds on it with their own legacy. Like, we had MD Oliver-Eakle for the Barfield, for example, and then the developers, and then the Center City efforts to get it redeveloped. That's just so cool that you guys are connected in that way. And
It's
kind of
amazing,
collaborating
and
across
you know,
a
I think
century.
the great thing to me is that when we look at these old buildings, we can give them a new life.
Yeah,
And what joy that has brought to Amarillo.
absolutely. So, talking about Eakle herself, what do you think stands out most to you about her story, or something that was the most unexpected part that you found out about it?
You know, I think, for one thing, I think she would be so proud today that her skyscraper has been featured on international television in Yellowstone and some of those shows. She would be so proud that her legacy continues. And her family really worked to keep her legacy alive. When Amarillo had its centennial in 1987, at that time I was working at the paper, and we had a meeting to decide who would be the right people to chair the centennial effort for our city. And we chose B.R. Barfield, her grandson, and Patty Lou Wolfland Dawkins. And it was just
Makes a lot of sense.
amazing because B.R. Barfield loved history. The Barfield home on Tyler Street is still a beautiful historic landmark. The Barfield building, and the family really worked hard to keep that legacy alive. I think one reason she may not be as well known, her name is not on everything that she did, but working behind the scenes, I just imagine that she had the vision to build Amarillo, not just the buildings, but also the culture with the public library, with the other institutions, with giving land for parks, giving land for Amarillo College. Those kind of things, I think, really show that she was not developing just businesses and buildings to rent. She was really trying to create a culture in the Panhandle when it was still very much in the pioneer stage.
Really having a big influence on the type of city that Amarillo grew into being.
That's
and
right.
That we still are today. I think that's wonderful. I
Isn't that
agree.
exciting?
It's so exciting.
I wish I could have known her.
Same, right? She sounds so fascinating. So what do you think, so when we're thinking about like using Oliver-Eakle's story to give context to students about Amarillo and the Panhandle, what do you think is the biggest takeaway that a student learning about her for the first time should take with them after hearing her story?
You know, I think the main thing I would say is, as we said in the legends, she was a visionary. And I think to work in historic preservation, people think it's looking back, but it's really taking that history and building on it, and building on the foundation of people like her, Sybil Harrington, some of these other great women. Think of the things we would not have today if they had not traveled, brought back ideas, and said, Amarillo needs this. If we're going to have this in Amarillo, we have to do it ourselves. And I think that is the spirit, the pioneer spirit we all need to have. If we have an idea, try not to wait on someone else to do it. Do it. And we're trying to do that so much with Center City. We helped establish the Amarillo Cultural District of the Texas Commission on the Arts. We said there's no cultural districts north of Lubbock. We need one because we have a symphony, the opera, the ballet, we have everything, the galleries, Museum of Art. And so we established that in 2016. And that's one example of saying, this is happening in other cities. We need this here.
I think that's wonderful, and I really admire Center City's like dedication to building that community too. You guys have your hands in pretty much all of the most fun and exciting things that go on in downtown Amarillo. It's really great, and it's wonderful to watch. So I agree that that's a really good takeaway. So when we're talking about like lessons to learn and then like follow-up discussions that students might have in their classroom, how does a person generally in the community start getting involved in community development and community engagement?
You know, I think one of the best ways is studying history and trying to look at the ideas and the vision in terms of our geography, our culture, and who we are today and who we want to be in the future. And a lot of times, you know, we make 5-year plans or whatever. I think it's time to make longer range plans. We are really right now are at a crossroads of our city's history, and there's many things we can do to make things better. I think the downtown neighborhood plans are working that way, but I'll tell you, every neighborhood, whether it's Center City, the Barrio, the North Heights, East Ridge, San Jacinto, every neighborhood needs a champion. And Dora Oliver-Eakle was a champion for Amarillo.
She was, absolutely. So I guess next steps for students who really want to get into community development or just learn more about engagement. Learning history and like getting involved in neighborhood associations.
Yes.
Looking into advisory boards, filling out a bunch of feedback forms that the city might put out on their website is a good way to get your voice heard if you're maybe not old enough to join an advisory board. Are there volunteer opportunities with Center City and other organizations like that?
You know, there
downtown with
are.
students?
We need a lot of volunteers to keep Center City going. We're a staff of 2 people. So we just talk real big, but we're only 2 people.
I mean, you do
And
big things, so
we
it's
do
fair.
big things, but it's with volunteers. And for example, our electric light parade coming up, we will use probably 24 volunteers all over. We have the mural run. We have events going on all through the year, different things, and it's a great way to get started. It's networking, it's meeting people. If you're working on your resume, it counts toward volunteer hours. There's a lot of great things they can do, and we are happy to have volunteers. We can always find something for you to do, especially around our big events. I think another great thing is take the time to look at the city's website and go to meetings that interest you. Those are public meetings. Texas has a very strong open meetings, open records law, and the meetings are published. The agenda is published. And if you see something you're interested in about your neighborhood or going on in Amarillo, like right now they're talking about the zoo, they're talking about things that everybody has an interest in. Go to those meetings, block out the time and go, because you will hear firsthand what's happening. And our news agencies do a great job, but they can't be everywhere. So sometimes go to a meeting, see what's happening. I know there's coming up, there'll be a town hall type meeting where citizens are invited to meet the candidates for our new police chief. That's just one example. But there's always opportunities. They don't cost anything except your time. And don't be intimidated. The open meeting records and open law is there for you. And I want people to go to these meetings and show up and hear firsthand what the citizens are thinking. And public comment is huge at city council.
It is.
If people have something to talk to the council about in that public forum, they make a way for every citizen to do that.
And it really makes a difference.
It makes a difference. And when I give speeches throughout the community, I love the Q&A part because I want to know what you want to know. I know what I know, but I want to know what you want to know. And I think that really shows me a big direction of how Center City should grow.
And that goes for every association that we have. Center City is a shining example, of course, but like Beth was saying, you can go to meetings for pretty much every department in the city.
That's right.
You can go to city council meetings. We have advisory boards that also have meetings for specific things like downtown redevelopment and historical preservation and parks development, activity planning, all that good stuff. And a lot of those departments have their own specific websites and association websites, like Center City has its own, Visit Amarillo has its own, the Chamber of Commerce, that sort of thing. And then if you want more historic context as well, you can go take a tour of our historical markers. We have a lot of fun buildings with them now, including the Barfield, and beautiful parks like Oliver-Eakle. And the Panhandle Plains Historical Museum also, if I remember correctly, has a bunch of artifacts and records of Eccles' life as well. Is there anything that I haven't touched on that you think is important for people to know and keep in mind as we're kind of wrapping up our Panhandle Legends era of Oliver-Eakle?
You know, I just think people should be grateful that we had the pioneer spirit. You know, Amarillo is so far away from Washington, D.C., Austin, Texas. And I think the pioneers realized if we were going to have a cultural city with opera, with a city manager form of government, with all these new things that were happening at that time, if we were going to have those things, we had to do it ourselves. We couldn't wait on someone else. I always say the cavalry wasn't coming. If we wanted it, and just think, now our symphony's 100 years old. Little Theater will have its 100th season next year. These places would not be there if we hadn't supported them through the years. And we didn't wait on someone to come in and tell us what to do. We decided what to do, and people got together and did it. And that spirit of working together is how we've really brought our downtown a long way in our strategic master plan. If you look in my office, we have a picture of downtown as it looked in 2007 before the master plan. I saved that picture. It's huge. It's 4 feet by 6 feet.
Oh, wow.
And I look at that and I see how far we've come now. And we can keep going that direction, working together for downtown.
All it takes is initiative and a willing to meet with your neighbors.
That's right.
I can't think of a better way to wrap up this particular conversation.
Well, I have fun talking
Thank
about
you
history
so
and
much.
especially our historic pioneers. And thank you for spotlighting history.
Thank you for helping us do that. I just love listening to you talk about this, and I'm so happy that you got to join us. Thank you again so much. I hope you guys also enjoyed this. If you would like more resources and context on Oliver-Eakle, you can look at the article connected to this video. And I hope you'll tune back in and join us next time for, I believe, Joe Fortenberry, a Panhandle sports legend, to kick off the new year. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you next time.